I am going to do a small 2-layer cake and then 6 cupcakes. I also made a chocolate frosting from scratch, and I'm going to use that frosting to fill my cupcakes. I'm going to demonstrate how to do that, as well as put some frosting on top. My cake decorating is not that great, so don't judge me on that. And today I'm featuring in my background a cake that I did make from scratch with some fondant one time for my friend Stephanie and her daughter Kate for her first birthday. It is a party in my tummy cake. I would also like to give a shout out to Lucas, aka Lulu, another one of my young fans. I have some links in the description to the recipes that I used, and yeah, so I guess that's about it. So I hope you enjoy this video. Hello, we're back at Janie's kitchen for another episode of Cooking Through COVID. So for this episode, we'll be making a cake from scratch. It will be a yellow butter cake. I've already measured all the ingredients out since it does have a lot of ingredients. This is a recipe that I found online. The website is Divas Can Cook, which is pretty obvious why that website drew me in. So I'll put a link to the original recipe, which also has a video that goes with it in the description of this video. So here in the pan prep, you'll cut 2 wax paper circles. You'll put shortening around the sides and on the bottom of the pan. You're really supposed to go ahead and put the wax paper in now. I forgot and put flour in it, and then you'll put flour on top. Alright, so our recipe calls for 2 eggs, 2 whole eggs, and 2 egg yolks. So earlier I was trying to separate my eggs, and I broke the yolks in the 2 I was trying to separate. So I'm going to separate the ones I was holding for my 2 whole eggs and just try to get the yolk. So you can do kind of a back and forth pour method to get this done. You can do this with your shells. So what you're kind of trying to get rid of is the white, obviously, just so I get my yolks. So I can get or pour off most of the thin albumin. It's the thick albumin that's going to be hanging really close to the yolk. So I'm going to have to kind of use my hands, or if I have an egg separator, I can use an egg separator to separate these. But I just want to try to avoid breaking the yolk like I did earlier. So this kind of snot, thick albumin, if you remember from the egg dissection video, is what you're trying to get rid of. And that's what's kind of surrounding the yolk and clinging to the yolk. So I just want that to come out, and I can kind of use my fingers to help me with that. And I really need another bowl. We'll throw all that out. So once I have this separated off of my last yolk, then it's ready to go back into the bowl by itself. Yay! And so now it's important to clean all this egg goo off of your hands. Got a little calazi that ended up down on the counter there. You see it off to the left. Looks like a little snot ball. Alright, so we're ready to get started on creaming our butter and sugar mixture. So I have a cup of butter, which is 2 sticks. This is softened, it's not melted, so I've just left this out at room temperature while I was getting ready. I'm just going to kind of cut it up into chunks so it mixes up a little bit easier. I'm going to use a hand mixer since this is probably what most people would have at home instead of the stand mixers like we would have in class. If you do have a stand mixer, then this would be fine to do that step with, or this step with a stand mixer. So I have the butter kind of cut up, and I'm going to sprinkle in a little bit of my sugar. So I have a cup and a half of sugar here. So I'm going to put a little bit of that in here, and then I'm going to mix this up. So I'm going to add in some of my sugar as I'm mixing, just to kind of get it mixed in evenly. use a spoon just to scrape the sides of the bowl to make sure I have all of my sugar mixed in. Alright, so I've scraped the sides of my bowl down, and so my mixture, what I'm looking for that to be, is just really, really fluffy and light. I just want to scrape around the bottom of my bowl and make sure all of my sugar has been mixed in. So the next step is going to be to add in the eggs. So we're adding in all of the whole egg mixture that I split apart and the 2 yolks. We're going to try to do that 1 egg at a time and then allow that to mix together. So we're going to take, I'm going to just kind of eyeball about half of this egg mixture here, and this is the whole egg. And then mix that in. And then I'm going to take one of the yolks and mix that in. And then I'm just going to repeat that with the rest of the whole egg. And then the last yolk. Before we finish with, or before we put in our dry ingredients, I'm going to add in my last liquid ingredient, which is going to be my vanilla flavoring. So the reason why this goes in here is that the flavoring mixes in with the fat, so the fat can carry it throughout the recipe. Alright, so after that's mixed in, I'm ready to start adding in my dry and liquid ingredients. Alright, so we're going to sift together all of our dry ingredients. So I have 2 cups of flour, and this is just all-purpose flour. I have my salt and my 2 leaveners that I'm using, baking soda and baking powder. And so this recipe also calls for buttermilk, so that's what's going to activate our baking soda. The baking powder is just going to give it a little extra lift. Alright, so I'm going to start alternating my dry and liquid ingredients adding in. So I'm going to add in a little bit of my flour mixture. I'm going to get that mixed in, add a little buttermilk, and then the rest of my flour mixture. So you always want to follow the pattern of dry, liquid, dry. Is thick, so we're going to scrape down the sides and make sure we get everything mixed in evenly. So like I still see I have some of my butter mixture. We want this to really be all the same consistency through and through, and we want to make sure everything is mixed in. Oops, don't tell Janie. So I'm going to mix this around one more time, and then this batter is going to need to sit for about 5 minutes. Alexa, start a timer for 5 minutes.
5 minutes, starting now.
Alright, so I am going to first put a few cupcake liners in a muffin pan, and I'm going to set up a 6-cup situation because Mr. Israel wanted me to do filled cupcakes where I'm going to pipe some frosting in those after they're done. So I have a little cookie scoop. I'm just going to use that to make sure that the batter gets in here evenly. Okay. Alright, so when I'm ready to put my batter into my cake pans. I'm just going to kind of visually divide this in half, just kind of eyeball it for each pan. So I'm going to put a blob in that one and a blob in this one. And then I'm just going to kind of shake these around so that that kind of gets even. If I really wanted to be precise, I could scale these and weigh out the batter and put the same amount in each one, but we're not trying to do all that. And I'm just going to shake that around so it gets pretty even on top. If I drop them a couple times, it will help to settle the batter in the pan. So the original recipe is for a 9-inch round cake pan. So since these are significantly smaller, and I'm also doing the cupcakes, I'm going to set the timer for about 20 minutes and then check it and see if it needs a little bit more time. The original recipe says 30 to 35, so I just want to make sure that this doesn't burn. I have this set in a 325 degree oven. I've put these pans in the rack or on the rack so that they do not touch each other, and just kind of tried to evenly space them out. Do it. Hello? Alright, so while the cake is in the oven, I'm going to go ahead and mix together the ingredients for the frosting. So in here I have butter, powdered sugar, and baking cocoa. And so this is also from the Divas Can Cook webpage. And so I'll link that recipe in the description of the cake video. Interrupt to my cooking show. Pretty sure I killed Janie's hand mixer, so I just ordered one on Amazon. It'll be here Tuesday. She's screaming in the background about chicken pies. Alright, so my cakes are out of the oven. The cupcakes, not super cute, but we're going to cover them with icing. So I'm going to fill these first. So I have my filling tip that's on, and I have filled this up with my frosting. So I'm just going to insert this into my cupcake. I'm going to feel and slowly pull up from that. And then I'm going to end up going back over these with some more icing. Alright, so I'm adding the icing to the cupcakes, and I'm not real good at this, so we're just throwing some up on here. I've got a little decorator tip. So we're going to put that on there, and then I'm going to get the cakes ready for their frosting. So to put the frosting on the cakes, you'll put a pretty thick layer on the top of the first cake, and then dump pretty much everything else out on top of the cake, and then spread it across the top, and then bring it down around the sides.